What's up, guys? Welcome back to the machine shed. We're finally starting to come out of this cold spell and it's warming up. It's a beautiful day out today. So I wanted to come out here before work and get a little bit more work done on our motor here. Last time, if you didn't watch the first episode, the quality was kind of bad. I forgot to turn the 4K on, so I apologize for that. But we did our crank main journals. We polished the crank first, and we measured up our crank main journals, and we found out that all of our crank main journals are well within spec. And now we're going to move on to our rod journals. And then after we do our rod journals, those check out okay, we're going to move on to our block to check our main housing bore diameters, and then move on to our cylinders. So yeah, we'll just keep trucking along here, and hopefully we'll have a bunch of measurements by the end of this weekend, and we can determine if we can build this motor the way we want to build it. Now the cool thing is that my pistons and rods finally came. I got some 4th gen pistons and rods off of eBay. Now the rods are in perfect condition. They're actually just about brand new. They were ran in a dyno cell twice. But the coolest part about them is that they actually have pistons that measure up 380 on the skirt and 376 on top. So that means we're gonna, when we hone our block, we're actually gonna have plenty of room, and we're gonna have just the right size piston to put in there. So this should go really well as long as all our measurements come out okay. We can put some standard bearings back in, and then on Monday we're gonna get once we get this weekend, we're gonna get all our measurements done on the block. And then on Monday, I'm gonna have it all hot tanked and cleaned. So once we get our block back from getting hot tanked, we can start assembling this thing. And we'll also order bearings this weekend as well, once we get all our measurements. So that said, let's hop into it. All right, I'm gonna get this first one done here with you guys, and then I'm gonna go ahead and time lapse the rest. Actually gonna come over to just above this oil galley. I'm actually gonna mic it on both sides of the journal, because we obviously got 2 rods to go on here. All right, and now we've got 2 inches 100 thou is our standard crank rod journal, and let me see if we can get a good shot of our measurement there. See if I can hold it still for you guys. There we go. Show you there. There's our vernier rather. So we've got a 7 there. So we've got 2.0997. So we've got 3/10,000ths under, which we're going to be okay on that. And then we'll just try out our other side here. Okay, and let's see what we come up with there. All right, and we've got just about the same measurement there. Let's do it one more time, just to make sure. I want to make sure that this is tight, but that, there we go. Just like so. And we've got literally an identical measurement there. And we also remember that we've got 1/10,000th on our caliper here. Accuracy level on our caliper is within 1/10,000th. So kind of got to take that into account. So now we got our first one measured up there. I'm going to time lapse the rest of these, get them measured up. We'll write them down and we'll keep going. All right, guys, so here we have our results. Rod journal number 1, we've got 20997. Rod journal 2, we've got 20993. Number 3, we've got 20993 as well. And then on number 4, we've actually got 2.1000. Now, here is our standard 2.100. So we're within, our farthest out is going to be 7/10,000ths, and I'm very happy with that. That's totally cool with me. We actually might I might come back and polish that number 4 journal to sort of bring that down to, you know, I would say maybe a 0.995. But if I didn't, it would be okay too. That's totally fine. So the good news here is that we're actually going to be good to go on our crankshaft. Our crankshaft is fine. And now that we're done with that, we can start working on the block. So we'll go ahead and we're going to do our main housing bore diameter. That's why I wrote HPD there. So we're going to pull our main caps off, pull the bearings out of them. We're going to torque everything to spec, which I'm not going to like show the torque sequence and whatnot of doing that, because you can find the information. The information's out there. You can check it out on the internet. It's really easy to access. You can actually check it out on summitracing.com, or you can actually get a book, which I actually do have a book. I'll show to you guys the book that I'm using. But we'll go ahead and get those bearings out, get the mains torqued, and then we get the dial bore gauge out. We'll set that up. I'll show you guys how to do that, and we'll keep going. All right, guys, so we've got our main caps all torqued down, and we're ready to measure the main housing bore diameter, and the standard is 2.751. So we've got our micrometer here set to 2.751, and then 1 on the vernier. So we've got 2.751, and then we simply took our dial bore gauge rather, and stuck it inside the caliper so that our gauge goes to 0 when we get it inside of this micrometer. You can see that we are on 0 right there at 2.751. We'll stick it down here in the front first, and we can see that as we rotate this, the smallest measurement that we can achieve is exactly 0. So that tells us our housing bore diameter is exactly 2.751. Now there's an oil passage, an oil galley right here with a big sort of, a cavern in there. So we're going to measure on the front side of that and the back side of that. And we'll just move on to the second one here. And she's right on 0, 2.751. Oh, a lot of times your pin will get stuck in that oil galley. It's really annoying. That's okay. Just work past it. All right, now we're on our second side there. And that is dead on the money, 2.751. Now we're on the first side of our third journal here. And again, we are dead nuts, right in between a 10,000th over. Okay. And there we are, half a 10 thou over. Oh, wait. No, there we go. We got her to 0 out. So we got 2.751 there again. Slide her on our front side there. On the front side of our oil galley, we've got exactly 2.751, right on the money. Rotate this a little bit, see if I can't not get stuck this time. Okay. Other side of our oil galley. Boom, she's dead nuts. 2.751. She's right on the money, 2.751. Very good. Now let's go to the back of that journal. And we got just over half of a 10,000th. Now all those are so close, I'm going to call them 2.751, because honestly, I mean, when you're talking half a 10,000th, it's, this gauge is only accurate to a half thou. So we're going to call that good. They're all solid. The main housing bores are straight. They're not out of round. And because I did measure the other way as well. We've got all our mains checked out. We've got our crank checked out. Everything I'm seeing here is looking good. Okay, so we're back. We're moving on to our cylinder bores here. We've got our 3.8 pin selected, so that's going to be 3 and 800 thousandths. Now we've got to 0 out our dial bore gauge. And now these are the only micrometers that I have, and they only go to 3 inches. Our target is actually 3.780. So we're gonna bust out the caliper here and use the caliper. Now, this isn't the most accurate thing in the world, but I just want to get a measurement on these cylinders and see if we can't see how out of round they are, how bad the taper is. All right, so this particular caliper, which is just an El Cheapo, this only goes to hundreds of thousands, so we can't measure tens of thousands, but this is still going to give us a really good indication of what the cylinders are like. how far out they are, how, you know, bad the taper is or how good the taper is. We'll hope for the best. And then you can see I got two little marks on my caliper, and when it's actually closed, those cross. So that gives us a good indication of where to stick our dial bore gauge. This showing 1 thou shy. Kind of weird. And that's showing just about the exact same thing. So they're both saying 3.779. Seven, 9. And we'll come the other way. All right. That's reading 779. What that's telling me, if I'm being honest, is that dial caliper is probably off 1 thou. There's no way the cylinder shrunk. That's showing 779, the cross section in the center. Let's go right down to the bottom of the cylinder here. And that's showing the same. It's showing me 779 all the way down. And now we can see down in the cylinder where the piston stops right there. So there I was measuring the skirt as it goes all the way to the bottom of the cylinder. Now we measure the other side of the piston and it's 779 again. So we're getting 779 throughout the entire cylinder, which is to me bizarre because there doesn't seem to be any taper. But this is the first LS I've ever worked on. That could be a thing. All right, guys, so I just wanted to real quick take a look at the board and all the stuff that we wrote down, all the measurements that we took, and kind of come to a conclusion on what it is that we got here. So for our main housing board diameters, we've got 2751 all across the board. She's golden. That's factory spec. Absolutely perfect. Our crank main journals, we found some really small discrepancies, but nothing to be worried about. Everything's either dead on or within factory limitations. So 2.558 is, or I'm sorry, 2.559 is the listed factory spec on the main journals on the crank, but 2.558 is within tolerance. So that's good to go. We do have 5591 down there on journal number 5, but remember that 1/10,000th was also the limitations on the measurement device that we're using, my micrometer. Over to the crank rod journals, our factory spec was 2.100, and we're under 1,000th on all those. If I had to change one thing, I think I'd go to number 4 and I'd actually polish it harder and bring it down to 997 just to make them all even closer together. But you know what? We're going to send her with the specs just how they are. And then over to our cylinders. I know these are harder to see, but they all turned out to be 779 or 3 inches, 779 rather, and our standard is 378. So everything looks really good here. This is most likely one of the engines that if a guy had just taken this apart and polished the crank and threw some bearings in it, you probably would have had a good time. So yeah, if this was one of those engines where you just pulled it apart and threw, polished the crank and threw fresh bearings in it and a new set of rings and deglazed the cylinder walls, this would have probably actually worked really well, depending upon what you wanted to do with it. As far as this particular engine, like I said before, it's going to go to the machine shop on Monday. I'm going to have it hot tanked, completely cleaned. I'm going to have the crank hot tanked as well, cleaned. I'm going to have the bearings, cam bearings, knocked out of it, new cam bearings put in, and then I personally am going to choose to torque plate hone it to fit these pistons that came with a set of rods that I bought. I bought a set of 4th gen rods for the motor, and they had these pistons that were just slightly oversized. I couldn't figure out what they were. I asked around some guys on Facebook. They said those are stock 4th gen 5.3 pistons, and I said okay. And so I actually messaged the seller back, and he said actually what they are is GM remanufactured 5.3 pistons, because they're like 5,000 over or less. So, but that's really cool actually, because we can have this block honed out to fit those. Since all the bores are so straight, I know it's not going to be a problem. We'll get those fitted in the block. At the same time, we're going to drop our cylinder heads off and have them pressure tested, because aluminum heads, I don't want to end up with a cracked head and whatnot. But when we get it back, when we get it back from the machine shop, we're going to go ahead and slap this thing together. And there's a couple of things you could, like I said, for an extreme budget build I could have skipped, but I'm just going to do a couple of things here and there, and hopefully this thing holds together for half the summer. If it doesn't, I really don't care. I've already got another motor in the works. I'm trying to go with an aluminum block. I didn't particularly like this motor from the start, from the get-go. It was in such bad shape. And another thing that we're going to have to have done is have the lifter bores slightly honed, cleaned out essentially, because they just have so much varnish and stuff going on in this motor, because it was very poorly maintained. So that said, though, this kind of completes the redneck blueprint, the backyard blueprint. And you can see I'm not a pro at this, but the cool thing is now we know, just by having all of our measurements, that this thing's going to be fine. This engine's going to work great for what we're going to use it for. We don't have to spend all types of money on expensive pistons and connecting rods and a crankshaft for a motor that was extremely poorly maintained. And a guy probably could have just slapped this in the car and threw a turbo on it, but with the condition that the bearings, especially these cam bearings, were in, this thing would have grenaded on the first or second pass, no doubt. I guarantee it. So I'm going to throw a new set of bearings in it. We'll get these new pistons, and we get the 4th gen heavier rods in it. Not going to have it balanced. I know that might trigger some people, but you know what? I really don't care if this thing grenades. It won't break my heart, because we've got a $500 motor. We've got $150 rods and pistons, and some bearings, some machine work. It's not a big deal, and you could, like I said, you could have skipped a lot of this. If you did, like I say, if we did all our measurements and they came out the way they did, we could just slap bearings in this right now and throw the old pistons back in, take a ball hone and deglaze the cylinders and send it. I'm going to go a smidge further, but I really wanted to show how you can throw these things together like this, and it can be right. You know, everything checks out here. So, but we're gonna go a little bit further, and I appreciate you guys coming along for the ride. I know I'm getting the hang of this, you know. I'm gonna try and get better at it, but yeah, hit me with a like, comment, subscribe if you want to. These videos are all kind of boring, but I promise you, this summer when we're racing, we're gonna have a blast. Thanks for watching, guys.